Vosper's boat. So, let's start reading. Mr. and Mrs. Vosper were driving in the country. They saw a boat on the side of the road. The boat had a sign on it. The sign said, "Boat for sale, $10." "We could go fishing in this boat," said Mr. Vosper. "We would catch fish and cook fish and chips for dinner," said Mrs. Vosper. So Mr. and Mrs. Vosper bought the boat and took it home. Mr. Vosper fixed the holes. Mrs. Vosper painted the boat. They sang as they worked. "We will go fishing, fishing, we will go fishing in the sea. We will go fishing, 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 fish and chips for you and me." Mr. and Mrs. Vosper put the boat on the trail. They sang as they drove. "We will go fishing, fishing, fishing. We will go fishing in the sea. We will go fishing, 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 fish and chips for you and me." The boat went bump, bump on the trailer, but Mr. and Mrs. Vosper didn't hear. Mr. and Mrs. Vosper went around corners and up and down hills. They sang louder and louder. The boat went bump, bump, bump off the trailer and on the road, but Mr. and Mrs. Vosper didn't hear. Mr. and Mrs. Vosper came to the sea. They got out the fishing lines and the box for the fish. "Now we will get the boat in the water," said Mr. Vosper. But when Mr. Vosper went to get the boat, it was not on the trailer. "What?" said Mr. Vosper. "Where is the boat?" "Oh no," said Mrs. Vosper. "Where is the boat?" Mr. and Mrs. Vosper went back along the road, looking for the boat. "Look," said Mrs. Vosper. "There is the boat." "That was the boat," said Mr. Vosper. "Now it is just a pile of wood. What can we do with a pile of wood?" Mrs. Vosper smiled. She made a sign and she put it on the pile of wood. The sign said, "Wood for sale." A man came along the road. He stopped by the pile of wood. "I want some wood," he said. "I will give you 20 pounds for this wood." Mr. and Mrs. Vosper smiled. "Good," said Mr. Vosper. "Good," said Mrs. Vosper. And she put the money in her purse. Mr. and Mrs. Vosper drove down the road. They laughed and laughed and laughed. They went to the fish and chips shop and they had a big plate of fish and chips for dinner. We don't need a boat, said Mr. and Mrs. Vosper, to have fish and chips for dinner. If you like my video, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe.